Is he here? I think Vivek sir is here, I think.
Yeah, I am here.
Yeah.
Welcome, Dr. Vivek.
Thank you, sir.
So shall we start now? Tufan sir, do we have the permission?
Yes, we'll start. Definitely.
Good evening, all of you. Welcome to this 22nd edition of Thursday Musings. The format for today will be a few cases regarding POCSO, brief discussion on each cases, and then an overall discussion in the end. So the next slide, please. Our next slide. Yeah, welcome all of you, and welcome Tufan Pati sir, the chairman of the program. Sir is a professor of psychiatry in Cuttack. He is very well known, and if sir allows, I can skip the introduction, and sir, over to you.
Yes, please. Thank you, Alim. Let me carry forward. We have got two stalwarts of Indian Psychiatric Society, the futures, the young, vibrant Dr. Amrit Patjoshi, who is professor and consultant of neuropsychiatry in High-Tech Medical College and Healing Touch Clinic, as well as Amory. He is a direct council member and editor of Odisha Journal of Psychiatry, which is indexed. And we have with us also Dr. Alim Siddiqui. He is also a direct council member and director of Healthy Minds Neuropsychiatry and Behavioral Sciences Center. He is well known. He is visiting professor of psychiatry at Lucknow Medical College. He is guest faculty in Amity University. He is finance secretary in IMA Lucknow and IAPP UP and Uttarakhand chapter. Welcome, Amrit and Alim. You have to do a lot of moderation today. And I have to introduce our honorable chairpersons, Professor T.P. Sudhakar of Tirupati. He is presently professor of Apollo Medical College, Chittoor, in Andhra Pradesh. He was formerly in Sri Venkateswara Medical College in Tirupati. He is a life fellow of IPS, IAPP, IABP, IAGMS, and IMA. He is an international member of American Psychiatric Association. He had been the CME chair of IPS from 2016-17, and he was the president of IPS 2017-18. He was award committee chair in IAPP as well as in IPS. He is presently PG committee chairperson of IPS 2019. He is undergraduate teacher for more than 37 years and PG teacher for more than 35 years. He was involved in WHO GI Multicenter Global ECS study on mental disorders in 2003 to 2007. He has done many industry-sponsored global clinical research. He has more than 20 publications and chapters. With this, I present before you the Dr. T.P. Sudhakar, who is well known to everybody, and we look forward to have valuable inputs from him. And we have with us Dr. Vivek Agrawal, professor and Department of Psychiatry in King George Medical University, Lucknow. His area of interest in child psychiatry, and that is why you have here. And we look forward to have a lot of inputs from him too. And with this, I hand over the meeting to the chairpersons, Dr. Vivek Agrawal and Dr. T.P. Sudhakar, and a nice, enriching academic session is ahead. Over to Dr. Agrawal and Dr. Sudhakar.
Dr. Agrawal, you can start, or you want me to start? I will start.
Sir, you start and I will introduce the speaker.
Okay. At the outset, I should thank the organizing chair, Dr. Tufan Pati, and very able organizing secretaries, my old friend, Dr. Alim Siddiqui, and of course, Dr. Amrit Patjoshi, for conducting beautiful Thursday musings. And this is the 22nd musing, and they have selected some of the very unknown topics, usually about which nobody would venture to discuss. In that way, maybe this is a very novel idea which has been put forward by them, and they had been doing it very successfully. And I should congratulate the whole team for that. Coming to today's meeting, this is again something which is very novel, except for child psychiatric conferences. Most of the times, this is one topic usually psychiatrists never touch upon because of maybe lack of exposure, lack of experience, and most of the psychiatrists do not run a sort of a teamwork wherein all the other personnel are involved. So most of the even senior psychiatrists are unaware of most of the aspects of POCSO. When it comes to real practice of these things, usually you have to depend on the expertise of NIMHANS or other child psychiatry centers around the country. And coming to the topic as such, the protection of children from sexual offenses. Actually, this was the act which was promulgated almost on the Children's Day of the year 2012, and subsequently in September 2013, the government of India had issued guidelines to every state to formulate their own rules about this particular section 39, wherein the role of mental health professionals and other counselors will come into play. So every state has formulated, and I was trying to search at Andhra Pradesh. I could not really find out anything. So that means we are probably fatal. There are not many centers of child psychiatry as such in Andhra Pradesh. We only run very, very skeletal child guidance services, wherein we don't see too much of uh, crime related things. So most of us are not very well versed with it. But maybe NIMHANS guidelines are still very good enough to follow. And coming to some of the basics of this particular law, this basically aims at protecting the children from sexual abuse or offense. And actually, if you look at one of the recent studies that have been published by Government of India, they have interviewed almost 37,000 and odd adolescents. And the figures, when they talked about the prevalence of people who have been abused in this particular study, it is mind-boggling. Actually, I think 52% of the boys, they said they had been abused at some point of time, right from their childhood, when they could remember, down to their adolescent age. Whereas the same figure is slightly less. Maybe again it is because of gender sensitivity. It is about 47% in girls. So these fairly very huge figures. I'm afraid that probably as mental health professionals, we are not really looking at the magnum of the problem, and we are also a little bit inhibited in almost exploring this aspect when we see some of our own patients, leave alone the other things. So I think this is one of the important aspect which probably in future all the young generation psychiatrists have to look at. And to have some decent discussion, we have got our speaker today, Dr. Alka Subramaniam, who probably works at both the extremes. She's a good geriatric psychiatrist as well as she's a good child psychiatrist. And probably she's going to come up with some of the cases in which she was probably exposed to, and others would discuss about it. To introduce her to the audience, I request Dr. Vivek Agarwal to take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Vivek, I think there should be a little more light on your face.
Yeah, so it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Alka, our speaker. She is Associate Professor at TNMC and BYL Nar Charitable Hospital, Mumbai. And she has been awarded the Har Govind Fellowship in 2007, and she went to New York University for experience in child psychiatry. And she has been pioneering in establishment of learning disability clinic, autism center and remedial center at Nayar Hospital. And she also pioneered the establishment of psychogeriatric clinics. So as sir was saying, both the extremes. Years of experience are 18, and she has won more than 20 awards, national and state level. And she has more than 80 publications, and she has worked in various positions in IPS. She has been co-chairperson, Young Psychiatrist, as well as Disability Task Force. She has been EC member of Indian Association for Child and Adolescent Mental Health. And in geriatric mental health, she has been Honorary Secretary and Chairperson Awards Committee. So now I invite Dr. Alka to present her talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Agarwal, for that very kind introduction. At the outset, I must thank Dr. Tofan Patti, Alim, and Amrit, the whole team of Thursday Musings, for having me here today. Of course, many of you will wonder that when we discuss mostly about psychotherapy, how come POCSO comes in? But then there is an art and science behind managing a law, and that's what we were hoping to bring forth. And it's my fortune to have Dr. TP Sudhakar and Dr. Vivek Agarwal as chairpersons. Sudhakar sir has chaired quite a few sessions of mine, and it's my fortune, I think, that we are often paired together. So without further ado, what we're going to do over the next hopefully 40 minutes, maybe slightly longer if you permit us to extend, is that we're going to actually see cases. The format is a little different this time. And with each case, how you discuss the case and what your thoughts are is going to funnel the discussion and propel us to understanding what this is. So can I start sharing the screen?
Yes, madam.
Okay. So as Dr. Sudhakar said, the POCSO Act, the philosophy behind it is for protection of children from sexual offenses, and it was instated in 2012. To give you a slight background in history, I don't know how many of you have read this book called Bitter Chocolate by Pinky Virani, who exposed the fact that there is so much of unreported, underreported, and hidden abuse in our country. Because everywhere, this was more than a decade, maybe 2 decades ago, it was assumed that the whole gamut of child sexual abuse, or CSA, is more in a Western concept. It doesn't exist in India, which is not actually true. And when she did her research and exposed the percentages, it set a lot of people and policymakers thinking. And then this act was made. This act was made to for the protection of children, thinking of, for, and by the children. So basically, a children centric act, as opposed to what we had earlier, which was the Indian Penal Code. Now, in order to, as I said, understand that, we are not going to go straight into the act, but we are going to go into understanding what a psychiatrist is supposed to do under this act and what is the role that we're going to play. So the first case for today, I thought, should be one on LD. Day before yesterday, for all those who don't know, was a little landmark day in the history of Indian Psychiatric Society, because psychiatrists have been re-included in the certification process of learning disability. But while you deal with learning disability patients, there might be some bumpers that come across. So let's see what happened here. So Miss J is a 12-year-old girl who was brought to the school clinic for academic difficulties. On evaluation, she was diagnosed to have ADHD along with SLD. However, the psychiatrist who was evaluating her noticed that she was a little anxious and aloof. Over 2 to 3 sessions, a rapport was built, and she revealed being molested by her paternal uncle who stayed with them. She was very scared and did not want to tell anyone about it. Her parents were very shocked that we got this history from the girl. But they said that they will be very clear that he leaves their home. They did not want to get involved with the police, as that would stigmatize them and their daughter. They came from a very conservative background. So, keeping this in mind, this background, what do you think should be the course of action? Here is a child who has been referred to school for LD and ADHD. Alongside that, we have realized that the child has faced sexual abuse. The parents agree to protect the child, but they do not want to lodge a police complaint. What should be our further course of action?
Ma'am, should we ask the audience to type in the questions
Yes,
now?
please can you ask them to type their answers in the chat box so that we can we can take
Yeah,
it.
so we have a case that has been presented. So what should we do now? The audience are requested to type their comments in the chat box.
And
Does
feel
anyone
free
have?
to feel free to express whatever you want.
We'll
So
not give marks in the end, and we'll not rank you.
I think we have
So
to.
we have got the first response. Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am.
Madam.
If you are getting the doctor should inform the police, counsel the uncle, provide support to child, not a file, making patients realize that they need to report under POCSO. Then psychiatrists are bound to report law enforcement agencies by POCSO Act. So these are few of the initial responses that we have.
This is a brilliant audience who knows one thing, and that's what Alim told me in the middle. Madam, POCSO में क्या है? Report ही तो करना है. I said absolutely. Report तो करना है.
Once you are aware of it, you have to report
number
it.
10 is that you have to report. Correct? So reporting is mandatory under the Act. This is okay. It is absolutely mandatory for all the doctors to register or report a medico-legal case in all instances of child sexual abuse. If you do not report, this could result in 6 months of imprisonment or a fine under Section 21. Report, however, has, yes.
Ma'am, there is one comment. First rule is no harm to the child. Cannot be reported if harm is likely.
Yeah.
There is
so
a slightly different.
Reporting has to be done. How reporting has to be done, we'll just come to. Okay. Please also remember false reporting levies a fine. So be very sure that the case is something which is genuine. And if the perpetrator is still present where the victim stays, if there is danger to the child, it is important to immediately report so that the child is out of danger, right? And how can we do this? We can do this by informing the special juvenile police units. Fortunately, this act has mandated that the police actually get training. They are in civilian clothes, they know how to talk with children, and they know how to go about dealing with the case. If facilities for detailed examination is not there, you have every right. Like the question often comes to us is, what does a single person do if you don't have a team? If you're a private practitioner and something like this comes about, right? You can always refer to a higher center stating that, yes, I have got this information and I'm referring to them to inform the police or do the necessary action as required. Examination, if the victim has faced the abuse and has come to you within 24 hours, then in the first 24 hours itself, examination is mandatory. This usually happens when the cases are reported to the police directly, right? Now, for those who have issues, we have had a lot of people who've gone back and forth saying the therapeutic alliance is often a problem because parents come to us because they are in distress, the child is in distress, or we discover, in this case, we discovered it, right? They do not want to report. What does a psychiatrist do? Will you break your therapeutic relationship with the in the individual, that's the child in this case? What do you think? Should we say no, we are going to report? We have to report, even if they are uncomfortable. If it means they say that we'll not come back to you, we are not, it's not going to work for us. This set of parents were from a very conservative background. They did not want to expose themselves to the police, neither their child to the police.
So ma'am, does this mean even if the parents don't want to, even if the person would not be again in my OPD, still we have to report?
Yes, it means that we have to report. If we have come to know of it, it means that we have to report. So usually
any clause where we do,
there's a caveat, there's a catch in this, that they have not defined the timeline. They have not said you have to report within 7 days, you have to report within 30 days. They have not said that. They've said you have to report. So we use that to our advantage and try and convince them. The best thing is to try and explain to them how it is legal now, how they can also be implicated if they hide it. And the police are very cooperative. If they refuse to go further with the investigation, the police also do not pursue the case. They document again and again that they are refusing to go further with the document. But reporting is mandatory. It has also happened that there are some psychiatrists who we have used the helpline. Actually, the helpline is for children in distress. It is not meant for us. So we have an email ID, if you look at the screen, and a mobile number where you can call up and say, so and so has faced sexual abuse in the hands of so and so, and you don't have to reveal your details. So in one or two cases where the children were following up with the psychiatrist over a long period of time and they did not want to report, and the psychiatrist did not want to break the therapeutic alliance, the advice we gave them is document that you have informed the helpline or send an email or call up. You can even call up Childline 1098. We have done that for a few cases at our center too, and they're very quick and very fast in picking up these cases when you explain the whole situation to them. That this is what has happened. They have come to me. However, they do not want to report it. The child at present is in danger, not in danger. Kindly do the needful. And they follow up to the team. Okay. So
Ma'am, one query is there.
yes.
Parents can sue the psychiatrist for revealing personal information. And what if the child changes the account of being molested subsequently?
If the child changes the account, parents cannot sue us because once you have revealed sexual abuse, it is mandatory for us to report. So we cannot be sued for that. This is under the POCSO Act, right? If the child changes the account, we have had a case who was admitted to us with a lot of florid description of sexual abuse. She was about 9 years of age at that time, but we suspected that it may not be the case, and we admitted her indoor in a period of observation. She turned out to have childhood psychosis, but at the same time we did inform the police, and they came and said that she is not in a state to give her statement, and we're not sure if it is because of this or because of the mental disorder that she's suffering from, right? So where the child may change the statement, that is what the judiciary and the police are going to follow up. From our point of view, the minute you hear of it, you have to report it. Someone has asked, why do you want to refer to a tertiary center? Only if you feel the need. You don't have to. What I'm trying to say, there are many people who think they cannot handle it because they don't have a multidisciplinary team and they want to refer. By all means, do that, but write it down. Document why you have not reported because you're referring to a tertiary center to do the needful. From your side, you have reported to a necessary authority. That is very, very important to document. Yes, I think we should go on to the next case. Otherwise, we'll just be here only. And we can take all the questions once and for all in the end. Yeah.
Sure, ma'am.
So,
Sure, ma'am.
case 2 is Miss K, a 5-year-old who has been sexually abused by her neighbor. Her parents immediately took her to the police station. An FIR was lodged, but the procedure took very long. The reporting officer was busy, but he kept asking them questions intermittently. The child was made to sit in the police station overnight. She kept telling her mother, "Dar lag rahi hai, ghar chalo." But every time the mother asked the officer, he said, "Listen, police formalities take time. You got to wait." He then asked one of his colleagues to take the child to the nearest government hospital for the checkup, and he finished taking the details from the mother. The girl was crying and didn't want to leave the mother, but he pacified her, saying the examination had to be done within 24 hours and he would bring her mother there shortly. Now tell me, what do you all think? Is this the right approach? Do you think the police officer, because he has 24 hours to do his job, right? He has to do it within that much of time. So, sorry. So what is the issue over here, or what is it that we have to take care of in this case?
So inviting audience comments now.
Yes. Questions and
So yes, and we have comments.
yeah.
Yes.
So only lady officer should accompany child. Wrong approach. Mother should
If it's
accompany.
a
A
female
child
child,
cannot.
yes, period.
Yeah, a child cannot be separated from the mother. A child cannot be made to wait overnight in police station. No, the mother should be there. A reporting officer not doing right, he should give proper attention as priority. Lady officer should be there. Child cannot be made to stay back in police station. Going to police station is wrong. First, medical aids need to be provided. Wrong approach. Child should be with mother. Police should be in civil dress. Child is under 12, need consent of parent guardian also. Accompanying female attendant. Have to call a counselor for distress counseling. Police should refer the case to POCSO team. Lady officer in formal clothes. Those are the majority of the
Yes.
answers.
So see, the issue here is you cannot have one police officer who's managing other things and also taking care of this case. We have special juvenile police units. The minute the case comes, one person has to take over and give all attention to this particular case and this particular child. Second thing is POCSO is extremely clear in defining that the child should be at comfort, and the interview, including the police statement, can be taken in the child's home if so required. It is not mandatory to be in the police station. It is certainly not mandatory that you keep harassing the child, and definitely not to separate the child and the mother. Younger children, obviously, even if the parental consent is there, assent from the child also has to be documented. It is very, very important. If the examination cannot happen within 24 hours because the child is not comfortable, this has to be documented by whoever it is, whether it's the police officer or the examining doctor or so on and so forth. So these definitions and the process, what does the police do, who is the police, how they should dress, how they should talk, what they should do, what the medical team should do, should if there's a medical team which consists of, we have one-stop crisis centers, and we have a child sexual abuse team at Nair Hospital in Mumbai, where we have a forensic expert, a gynecologist, pediatrician, pediatric surgeon, and of course us, the psychiatrists, who evaluate the child together. Now, if the child comes in, say today or tonight while we're speaking, is each one going to individually evaluate the child and talk to them? What do you all think? As they refer, right? पहले गायनेक के पास आएगा तो गायनेक देख लेगा, फिर फोरेंसिक देख लेगा. Yes or no? So I'm glad.
The answer is no, no, altogether, no.
Yes, absolutely not. See, we have to remember, every time you are asking the child, that person is reliving that experience. Children are resilient, they are adaptive, but we don't have the right to keep asking them that same question. So we take the history together. The examination is also done together. Even if we are not doing the physical examination, it's okay for us to be present in the room. Then what is the media supposed to do? If you notice, POCSO reporting in the media is one of the, fortunately, just and ethical things which is still happening. They do not mention the name of the child. They do not mention the, anything related to the parents or the school or anybody, any identification which can lead to the child. So that is mandated, and that is very strictly defined. If an NGO is involved, what is the role of the NGO? The NGO cannot say that we are Sunshine Center. I'm just taking any name. Please don't take offense if someone has that name. We are Sunshine Medical Center, and we have taken this case and we have done so and so forth. Not allowed. Not allowed. So these things are very, very well documented in POCSO Act, right? So the examination can be done by any registered medical practitioner in a government setup, however. And you have the multidisciplinary or the one-stop crisis team model, as I mentioned, where the case is registered either with the police or direct. They come to the hospital if there are injuries. Then you have the forensics, pediatric surgery, gynecology, and most important, psychiatry. Okay. There has to be a detailed description of the nature of crime, whether it is just harassment, molestation, viewing of pornographic content, calling out names, whatever, who the perpetrator is. What is it, a stranger, or is it someone who is actually meant to protect the child? And this is where for the first time, the term aggravated sexual assault, where the protector, if the protector is the person or the caregiver is the person who's responsible for the sexual assault, your penalty goes up much higher, because you were in a position of caregiving, you were in a position where you were expected to protect the child's interests, and you have violated that. So therefore, obviously, the term for that person is much higher, which is a very important thing. And very nicely, they have use of interpreters, which are allowed for children with special needs, which was not thought of in the previous act. Right? Shall we go to the next case? Is
Yes,
there
ma'am.
any?
Ma'am, Ashwin Mohan Boss has put in a very good comment. There seems to be a disconnect between the law and resources. I'd love to see the law to be implemented in letter and spirit. So all this is very aspirational, desirable, but not pragmatic.
Not really, Ashwin. Not really. We have seen a sea change we have special juvenile police units which are in place. The media is doing their reporting quite well. The police have been trained. Yes, we have shortage of medical personnel, but things are improving much more. Not yet reached the utopian stage completely, but it's a sea change than what was there a decade ago. I'm sure people from Pan India can give their opinions about it, people who have worked in this area. We need more centers and we need more cells, but as far as the police, the media and the NGOs are concerned, they have actually changed their approach to a child who has had sexual abuse. So there I a little bit beg to differ. Maybe people will think that because I'm from Mumbai, which is an urban area, metro city, therefore things are like that. But I've got feedback from a lot of places, and most people say that there is a change. That's very important, which is why it's very important for us also to be aware of this act and embrace it so that we can take it forward in our centers too. Yes? We'll go on to the next case, and then we'll come back to these questions about how India can implement POCSO and how we can improve these things. Yes? Okay, so the third case is Master L is an 8-year-old boy who lives in a chawl. Chawl is like a little modified slum. One night he came from the bathroom very scared. He confided in his elder brother, who was 16 years old, about a man who had caught him in the bathroom, pulled down his pants and penetrated him from behind. He said he didn't see him as he ran away soon after, but he was tall, dark, and had an ugly scar on his face. His brother surprisingly revealed a similar episode that had happened with him when he was younger. But he said that the police do not accept male abuse as a crime. Opinions?
What is the question we are asking?
Male abuse, male sexual abuse, is it a crime or not? Because the elder brother was abused. And the police did not accept it when he went and complained about it. The younger brother tells the older brother said, मेरे साथ भी हुआ था, पर क्या फायदा, पुलिस कुछ नहीं करने वाला है.
Sure. So male abuse, was it a crime?
Yes.
Ma'am, I think answers are coming in quick and fast. POCSO is gender neutral. It is a crime, yes, crime.
See, we have a very well-educated audience. Brilliant. So, POCSO does say it is a crime, but it's important for us to understand what are the differences between IPC, Indian Penal Code, and POCSO. So IPC is considered a child to be anyone below 15. They had no special juvenile police units. Only penetrative act was accepted. So actually this child had penetrative assault, and therefore it would have still been considered even under IPC. It excluded males. Now there we go. Okay. There were no clear guidelines for stakeholders, and the cases took forever because the onus was on the victim to say, mere saath hua hai, right? Vis-a-vis POCSO, where child is anyone under 18 years. So it broadens the scope of people coming under its ambit, children, that is. There are special police and there are special POCSO courts Please understand there's a whole separate judicial system. It's not as fast as it should be, certainly not, but it's still there. It exists. It includes all type of crime, including pornography. It certainly includes male sexual assault, which was totally underreported and missed in the Indian subcontinent. It defines roles for all stakeholders, and it gives 1 year to depose cases, which is not happening at a ground level. I'll be very honest about that. But the onus is on the accused because they go behind bars straight. There is no question. If a person is registered, if there's a registered CSA against a person under POCSO, you're behind bars. That person has to prove that, yes, I'm the one who is not guilty, and not the other way around, where the victims had to go from pillar to post and not get any justice earlier. Right? So male sexual abuse and sexual assault is definitely to be reported, and it is accepted.
Ma'am, if the perpetrator is also a minor, is it still CSA, and is it mandatory to be reported under POCSO?
It's mandatory to be reported under POCSO, but they will not be tried by the routine act. It will be tried under the Juvenile Justice Act, or JJA as we call it. So the process for prosecution differs if both are minors, right? The leniency, the understanding of the act, all that changes, but it's still mandatory to report. We have had children as young as 8 and 9 years old, which was sexual experimentation at its best, yet it was mandatory to report, both of them being minor, and then we had to let the judiciary take it forward, right? Anything else? Any questions?
Dr. Fabian has asked for the slide to be placed for 1 second. If you can have the previous slide, madam.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe he wants to have the screenshot. Ma'am, there is a case mentioned by Dr. Shalini Bhasin. 4-year-old child came to the school with blood under her garments. Mother was petrified, reverted to the school. The authorities show the CCTV, which saw the child getting hurt from the edge of table around that specific area, and so mother was satisfied. However, if there was no CCTV evidence of injury and the parent and child came to us, what would we do, as the child was not very vocal about it?
No, I didn't get the question. The child had an injury.
The child injured, yeah. The CCTV showed that the child got injured by the corner of a table.
In the private parts.
In the private parts. It was caught in the CCTV. Suppose CCTV was not there, then what should we do?
So did the parents report that they suspected sexual abuse? Or did they just come to you saying that the child had an injury?
They went to school. The school reviewed, and they saw the CCTV. The child getting hurt from the table.
Okay, so if there was no CCTV is the question that we were asked.
Suppose, hypothetical situation. Yes.
If there is no report of sexual abuse, either by the child or the school or the parent, we can treat it as an injury and go forward from there. If there is report from any one of them, it is mandatory to report. It is mandatory for the school to report. If they, in the premises of the school, if any child reports to them or the parent reports to them, if the school authorities do not report, they can also be penalized under POCSO. That means anybody who comes in contact with the child and has heard that this child has suffered from child sexual abuse has to report. Okay.
Alim, let us continue and then take questions in between. Let her continue.
Sure.
Right. Okay. Now we go to the next case. All right. So here we have Miss M, who's a 14-year-old referred from the gynecology services for 3 months of amenorrhea. She's been registered under POCSO and requires clearance for MTP. What are the things you would like to evaluate, and what are the precautions you're going to take while documenting? Is there any doubt in your mind in this case about the CSA?
Yeah, it's obvious, ma'am.
Pretty obvious. No? In a pregnancy, you cannot write. Can you write suspected or alleged? What would you prefer to write? See, there's always a scope for consensual sex, right? But there is no scope for the fact that intercourse has not happened when a girl is pregnant. Till now, we don't have parthenogenesis in our species, right? So it's definitely going to be that there has been intercourse which has occurred. So how would you like to evaluate this child who has come to you, because she requires clearance for a medical termination of pregnancy? What are the things that you're going to evaluate as a psychiatrist? And what
So the question
precautions?
is, yeah, how should we evaluate this and the child, and what are the precautions while documenting?
Because you are going to evaluate, and on the basis of your evaluation, they will take her up for that medical termination of pregnancy. So what are you going to do? No, the
Pregnancy has been
First,
confirmed. That is that.
Yeah.
That is why we have been referred for MTP, no? So people.
yeah.
it's a confirmed
So-
pregnancy, so there is no question of confirming. What all would you want to evaluate in this child, 14-year-old?
IQ, someone has written IQ status, then explore the circumstances which led to pregnancy. It is an assent form, but parents have to sign.
Okay.
PMSC, consensual or abuse, psychological status, level of intelligence, whether consent was there, whether the girl understands MTP,
Very good. Yes.
capacity
so
of the
they
patient.
understand. Correct. So intelligence, whether she understands what is pregnancy, what is MTP, what has she got, and what is she going to lose? These are important questions for us to document. Yes.
Yeah,
Then,
mentally preparing child for MTP, child psychiatry assessment form.
yes. Okay. And what will you be careful about while you're documenting?
So the next query is careful when you're documenting. How should you be careful? What should you be careful of?
Be particular about while documenting? Assent is one of the things which people have written. Yes.
Take statement
Consent
of
from
child
parents.
Rule out mental illness. Okay.
should be recorded. Consent.
It should be documented. You don't have to have an AV recording of that.
Written consent.
Yes. Yes, but it's also important the terminology we use, right? I asked you earlier, would you want to use the word alleged or suspected? Now let's see what all we are going to assess. So first thing is, of course, your mental status, which we do our daily bread and butter. You can use psychometric tests. IQ, definitely, in most cases, it would help us to go forward. If you feel that there are emotional issues, you can do a children's apperception test or the TAT or the HDRS. But please remember, these children come to us in acute stress. Many of these tests, what they show us at that point in time, may not sustain over a period of time. So at least a month follow-up is very important for us to state that there is a mental illness or disorder. I would be very wary before putting it down in the first or second interview, depression, anxiety, because we have seen with very high HDRS scores who come below 5 within the first 10 days. Okay. And then where is that going to stand? That's because there's such severe and acute distress. So before you say that the person has a mental disorder, be very particular about how you go about it. Differ from giving a diagnosis till you finish all the examination and follow-ups. In history, words like alleged or reported by the child and the informant is to be used rather than saying that suffered from sexual assault, this person assaulted. This alleged is an important word that we use. In case of pregnancy, however, you cannot say alleged because the evidence is there. Then we have to say the pregnancy is there, in a suspected case of child sexual abuse because it is still under evaluation. And please put down the details verbatim. Try to describe the act as reported by the child. If the child is uncomfortable, abort the interview there and then. Do not force the child to give an history. Chal bol do na, beta bol do, fir wo andar chala jayega. This happens. It happens because even we feel there's pressure from the parents, pressure from the police. Jaldi kar do, ye kar do. No. If the child is not comfortable, please document. You have every right to take your time, and the child has every right to take their time in opening up about it. We can always say the child was not comfortable, called again next week or called after 3 days or whatever.
Ma'am, what about physical examination part?
So physical examination part, we will come to here. Okay. We do not document that we have done it because we have not really examined physically, even if we were part of a team. So there are two ways that we can report it. If you're an individual, you write down your mental status examination and you can mention that for the physical examination, you refer to so and so or whoever has done it, because we are not experts in doing the physical examination. It has been argued that as MBBS, we are supposed to do it. So yes, in places where there is lack or dearth of resources, the concerned person or the psychiatrist has been asked that why do you not do the examination? But it is always fine to document and inform the police that you would like a expert, either forensic expert or a gynac expert, to evaluate this child and to examine this child for the physical injuries or physical and genital issues which are there, right? So in our documentation, we do not mention the genital examination at all. If you are in an institute, okay, and this child is referred and you have a multidisciplinary team, it's much easier for everybody if you have a consolidated form. By consolidated form, I do not mean that all of you need to sit together at one place and fill the form, but you have parts of the form which is stapled together and given to the police that, okay, it's a comprehensive form which is non-overlapping. So gynac will fill this, forensic will fill this, psychiatry will fill this, and if necessary, pediatric surgery, so on and so forth. Please be very clear about the mental status and document in your own handwriting with your own signature. In medical colleges, it so happens that the SR has seen or the specialty medical officer has seen and the faculty has not signed. And this becomes a huge problem in the court of law because it's written seen by Alim, but Alim's signature is not there. Or it's written seen by Alka, but Alka's signature is not there, right? So make sure that you actually sign across it in your own handwriting. This is very, very important in the court of law. And do not comment or copy. We've learned this the hard way. If you copy whatever the forensics or gynac have written, and then you're asked, did you do the examination yourself? Then why did you document it? Which is why I think it's much easier to say that the physical examination we refer to somebody else. I hope that answers your question. Yes, do we have any more questions for this particular? Yes, even if
what if the child is male, do we still refer to
So,
forensic for physical examination?
forensic and pediatric surgery evaluates for anal injuries. If you don't have pediatric surgery, pediatricians will evaluate. So see, pediatricians and gynecologists, I don't think anyone can say that they are not available. They are certainly more available than psychiatrists. If you have a psychiatrist there, you will have a gynecologist and you will have a pediatrician.
Yeah.
Right? So you can certainly ask them to do your physical examination. Okay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Shall we move on now?
I think so, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So the next case is Miss N, a 12-year-old who was referred to us from a shelter home for a second opinion. She had been registered under POCSO in a different hospital and was sent here from the shelter for suspected depression since 4 months. No doubt on evaluation, you find her to be depressed with active suicidal ideation. She will probably need inpatient care. Now, this is someone who was registered in another place under POCSO. So what is our role now in this? You have come to know that there has been child sexual abuse. So how are we going to go about dealing with it? in terms of the documentation, in terms of the treatment?
So how do you document or treat a case who is having depression, active suicidal ideation, and registered from in POCSO in a different hospital? That is the question, now.
So the child has been referred from another hospital, already registered under POCSO. So what do we do? Now they've been referred to us for a second opinion because the child they suspect has depression. POCSO case is registered. What do we do? Do we re-register? Do we inform the police? What are we supposed to do? How do we go about it when they have come to us for purely a mental disorder suspected?
So there are answers that inpatient treatment, we can document that it has already been registered,
Okay.
or hospital-based psychiatrist can do, or any other child psychiatry can register. Rajesh sir has written documentation is not required. We stick to psychiatry. Document that the child has been registered with a registration number, not necessary to re-inform.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so that the general things that has come out.
Okay.
Yeah, treat as any other patient, document that POCSO has been registered, and follow the treatment needed for mental illness.
Okay.
Note down.
So
I think most
it
of
is
them,
important to note the FIR number as well as the PC number. Each constable who is dealing with the POCSO case in the special juvenile police units have a number. We have to document that number of the PC who's following up and the FIR number, and inform the concerned police station who's dealing with the case that this child registered under POCSO. We are not re-registering, but we are treating for the mental illness. And the child is currently inpatient with us, so that they are informed of the status of the child. And secondly, they are aware that you are treating with full knowledge of the fact that this is a POCSO case you are dealing with. Okay. So from our point of view, that becomes important and necessary to document. If inpatient care is to be mandated, or you feel it is necessary, then the hospital authorities should be notified, and they can inform the nearest police station, who will inform the concerned police station, so that everybody is aware that this child is currently inpatient with us and we are taking care of them. Should any proceedings be necessary, should there be an interview or a statement to be retaken, if there's a court hearing, the court can be informed that this child is currently inpatient for depression with suicidality. Right? Depressive symptoms, like we discussed earlier, may be very, very high at the time. You have to be very careful when you're dealing with these children. And again, I'm reiterating this fact, please wait for at least a month if possible, if not at least 3 MSCs on different dates with the informant before you give your final diagnosis. What we have learned over a period of time is that these are cases of acute stress, because obviously the distress will be very high with this kind of trauma. And low dose anxiolytics or benzodiazepines really help, except for maybe when you're dealing with a pregnancy. And they really help in allaying the anxiety. And we see a huge shift in about 10, 12, or 15 days from then. Whereas initially, when you had seen the child, you would be completely convinced that this is either severe depression or anxiety. And there's a sea change which occurs in 15 to 20 days, and you're wondering how that has happened. Therefore, please be stringent about your follow-up before you make a final diagnosis. Right? This is something which is important to discuss at this point, because this child had been referred to us for depression. There is an emerging entity called as child sexual abuse accommodation syndrome, where the child does not discuss about the trauma, and that secrecy and helplessness leads to withdrawal from the world, that's retraction, and delayed or unconvincing disclosure. So they are not coming to terms with this, and neither are they sort of able to go forward, cope, and accept it, which has a huge bearing on the development of the child and future relationships. So it's very important that we identify that it is not the accommodation where the child is sort of going inwards, seeming like depression, but actually what is weighing is the guilt of the act and the secrecy which goes on and leads to helplessness. Lot of overlap, still very much in the research stage, but I just thought I would bring it over here because we need to work around these areas, particularly those of us, our friends who are clinical psychologists over here, might want to use this in their therapeutic techniques, right? Anything else that
there is a question, madam. If somebody comes without the documents and they just verbally talk about a registration that the case has been registered, how to handle these things?
so you have, if they just don't have their documents or the IPC number or the PC entry, the FIR number or the PC entry, even if you call up the police station, they will track it. If they tell you which police station it was registered under, your local police will coordinate with that police and they will get the number for you. So you can always document, we have informed so-and-so police station, since the child at present does not have their FIR details or the PC number details. And once it comes, you re-document the fact that they have provided this and I have included it in my documentation. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Ma'am, one person has sent a question. As a private therapist, is my documentation valid, or do I need an NGO,
No,
hospital psychologist, psychiatrist to document?
no. See, the examination is ideally supposed to be done in a government setup with a registered medical practitioner, okay, for the case to go forward. However, first report, if the child has come to you, whether you're a psychologist, whether you're a psychiatrist, if the child has come to you, pediatrician, you have
Or if
every,
you're a lay person also,
yes, a late, that's what I said, right? School,
if you're a
lay
press
person,
reporter, yeah.
school, if you're traveling by bus and it's your bus didi, she's very close to you. Yes, that person has the, anybody who is in the jurisdiction of the child's world hears about it, the person has to report that this child has suffered from some form of abuse. It is not necessary to wait for it to be referred to a tertiary center. Right? Okay. I see some of the questions are little, can we take them later? Because I don't think they're relevant to this particular case. We can come back.
Yeah, madam.
You
Sure,
Yeah,
sure,
ma'am.
sure.
We'll come back to this.
Yes. Okay. So those of you who feel your questions are not answered, or you feel that you want more clarification, please just put it in the chat box in the end and we'll see how we can address it. Okay. Right. Now, the next case. Miss O is a 4-year-old girl who was brought to the hospital for insertion of a broom into her genitalia. The wound was penetrative and had reached her intestines. She had profuse bleeding and was taken up for surgery immediately. The case was registered under POCSO and detailed history taken. Family was living on the streets. Parents gave a very vague history of the event. Both were substance abusers. When the girl was in a position to speak, the only thing she initially repeatedly said was "Balatkar kiya." She was in the ward for over a month. Her parents kept asking the cops when would they get compensation due to them. What do you think is going on here? This is a, first of all, tell me one thing, what kind, does this come under POCSO or not? Let's go back to that. Does it come under POCSO?
Yeah, most of the answers are yes.
One
Because
is also
there is
malingering.
Malingering, yeah. To speak.
There is
Not
a
the malingering.
very, some gadbad possible. I like that. So the any injury to the genitalia, any injury, and this is a grievous injury, is mandatory reporting under POCSO. Okay, even if it's only an injury to genitalia, it definitely comes under the ambit of POCSO. Okay, now what other things are, I see a lot of them are little worried about the parents. Someone has said gadbad. Why do you think there's gadbad? What is ticking in the mind to say that alarm clock baj raha hai, wo baja bhi?
The use of the word balatkar by the child, 4-year-old child.
Do we expect it at 4 years old? Okay, even if she uses the word balatkar, let's assume that she sees all sorts of things. She stays in the slums. She's heard things like that. When you ask her, balatkar kya hota hai? Do you think she'll be able to explain to you? Should she be able to explain to you?
Unlikely, ma'am.
It seems unlikely, right? It seems very unlikely. So what is going on here? She was in the ward for, see the parents, look at the parents' background. They're living on the streets, both used to abuse substances. And she was in the ward for over a month and parents kept asking the cops about what? What is this compensation they're asking for? Does anyone know? Okay, so there has been a fund for compensation which has been set up for all POCSO victims. The maximum amount to be given as compensation under the Act is 3 lakhs and an additional 1.5 lakhs for victims who are below 12 years of age. This is, of course, after the judicial process is over. Please note that. Not you report a case and you get the money. It's not like a financial gain that way. All right. And Srimati Menaka Gandhi has set up the Nirbhaya scheme for these victims, announced in February earlier, not this year. This is about a few years ago, 2-3 years ago. The corpus is 200 crores for that, only for compensation. And it was very interesting because this particular case came from a catchment area, and within a span of 6 months, we had 4 cases from the same area of grievous sexual injury to the children asking for compensation. So it's extremely sad that, you know, the parents are compelled to go into a position where they would be willing to let their child suffer so much because they need that. I'm not trying to justify it from the parents' point of view. These parents were substance abusers. They were on the streets. They were not really so-called good caretakers, but it's really unfortunate. So what would be done to a child like this when you find out that the parents are actually the ones who have done this for monetary compensation? What do you think? Yes.
Someone has written foster care.
Right. So the child goes to the CWC or the child welfare,
Please.
and the child is taken away from the parents and put
CWC.
into a home, a shelter home. And then later on, if proven that these parents are not worthy, which is very difficult, of taking care of the child, then the child may be given up for foster care. Unfortunately, the very, very unfortunate part about this is that the shelter homes themselves are not regulated very well. CWC does not have enough manpower or resources to help do the job that they are meant to do, and surveillance is not there, and there's a lot of abuse which goes on in those homes. This is all off the record. So our surveillance and involvement becomes even more important for protection of the child, which we have to do as a interested medical party rather than anyone from the legal enforcement. Yes? Okay. Shall we go to the next case, guys?
Yes, madam.
All right. Mr. P was a 27-year-old man brought by the police and accused in a POCSO case. And the letter from the police stated, kindly comment if he is capable of this act and comment on the mental status. What would you want to do, or how would you go about it? Now, this is an accused. Sorry.
So potency certificate is the first response that has come. Refer to urology, Department of Urology, physical examination of the accused. So we are
Is
playing
there
fastest
a,
fingers here.
Is there something that, yeah, we're playing fastest finger, I realize that. Is there something we have to take care of while evaluating the accused? What if I have evaluated the victim and then after 2 weeks they bring the accused?
Mental status, police records of accused, regular psychiatric examination and document other things, IQ, MSc, psychodiagnostic testing.
Yeah. So what do they want
Then
to know basically? The
Conflict of
Psychiatrist-
interest is also coming.
conflict of interest. A psychiatrist need not comment on capability of doing the act.
physical
Refer them to someone else. Conflict of interest, potency is not useful. Abusers are
psychiatrist will
usually
not comment on the physical capability, but what happens is the accused says, I am depressed, I have no libido. I have not had sex with my wife for the past 15 years, you can ask her. So what do we do, right? First and foremost, the accused and victim should preferably be examined by two different teams, not by the same team. So when we have evaluated the victim, we document and tell the police, this team has evaluated the victim. To have an unbiased opinion, kindly ask another team to evaluate the accused and vice versa. There are other teams who evaluate the victim, they send the accused to us, or we have evaluated the accused first, so please send the victim somewhere else. All right? They should not be brought face to face. That is one of the things which is very clear, even in the POCSO courts, even in, unless it's for identification, and even in front of the doctor, they should not be brought face to face. For erection, ejaculation, kindly refer to a urologist, get a physical examination done by a surgeon in places where you don't have a urologist. And mental status should be corroborated by psychometric testing wherever possible. If not, you can have repeated interviews if you're not sure to see that whether there is any active psychopathology. And it's always better to state no active psychopathology rather than saying that patient has nothing or there is some disorder you observe over a period of time. For the accused particularly, I think it's always better to take a second opinion about a mental disorder if you suspect that. There is no harm in referring to a colleague of yours and taking an independent second opinion. So very clear, the individual has schizophrenia, individual has bipolar disorder, individual has depression, except if you have previous papers and the person has been treated over a long period of time, then you already become the second opinion. Correct? So it's always safer to take a second opinion as far as this is concerned for the accused. Yes, presence of anything here that we want to comment on? Any other questions? No, I think we are done with this one.
I think we
right?
can proceed here.
Yes, all right. We go to the next case. So here we have a 23-year-old teacher who came to us to the OPD for treatment of depression. On very detailed probing, mind you, this took a long time to do. It was discovered that she was working in a daycare center where she had accidentally kissed a 10-year-old on his lips. He was a very cute boy who resembled her fiancé. She kissed him again a few days later, and subsequently he approached her twice, and she didn't want to disappoint him, she says, in her words. So she allowed herself to be kissed by him now, twice. Now his parents had complained to the daycare owner because they found out that this had happened. The kid said that, yes, I like it when, or he must have gone and done the same to someone in the family. And her job and reputation were at stake. And she was also worried about her fiance and his family, what kind of a response they would have. So she came to us and she thought she had depression and therefore she came to us. What would we do in this case? Does this have anything to do with, I mean, why am I discussing it here? Does it have anything to do with POCSO at all? The teacher has come to us for depression and on probing, she reveals it. So we have a therapeutic alliance with her, right? And what she's discussing is confidential.
So should we go for POCSO or not? That is the question.
Yeah, that's the question. And if
So
you
should-
go for POCSO,
Yes.
go for POCSO, what does this come under? Is there any special category?
So let us look at the responses first, madam. Some
All right.
interesting responses. If parents complain, it is under POCSO. Yes, yes. Difference between good case or bad case. Again, that's the thing that has come. Child is underage. Teacher needs treatment. The doctor had to report. She has committed an offense. Was there any sexual intent? If so, relevant. I'm just reading the responses so that we can deal
That's
with them.
very good. If there was no
It's
sexual
it's aggravated abuse. Yes. POCSO. Yes. Evaluate the teacher for psychiatric illness. Mandatory reporting. Penetration is not there. It will come under preview of POCSO. Inappropriate behavior, sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault, good case, bad case, custodial assault. So we have got most of the responses categorized like this.
responses. Please understand, good kiss, bad kiss, penetration does not matter. Even if a child is shown a pornographic content picture for a few seconds, is it with the child's consent? Can the child give consent for that? Unlikely. So when you are in a position where you are meant to protect the child, a daycare teacher is actually in an elevated position because you're almost like a parental proxy, right? So this comes under custodian or aggravated sexual assault, which is, it holds a higher imprisonment, even up to 1 or sometimes 2 years. So this is something which we cannot ignore. We would have to tell the teacher that though you have come to us and you've come with your problems, unfortunately, as per the law, this becomes mandatory and the parents themselves can take it forward for that, right? So there is no question of not reporting, and there is, in fact, it is a much worse condition because you were supposed to be in a position of a caregiver or a protector, and that position has been violated. See, if she was not there in the daycare, she would not have encountered that child. Because you're there, you have encountered. And why are you there? You're there to protect the interest of the child. So first, even if the child has come to you later, which is what her version of the story was, we still have to explain to the child, and we have to prevent ourselves from doing something like that, right? Okay, so that is about aggravated sexual assault. And we come to, I think this, so you receive a summons from the POCSO court. You have to be the mental health expert present for a trial. The case is of a 15-year-old girl with severe intellectual disability who was pregnant and now is in a shelter home. You have been asked to attend the court in order to see that the prosecution during the cross-examination is fair to her. So what is the role of a psychiatrist in a POCSO court? Are we supposed to attend this, and what role do we play over here? And is there any other role that we can play in a POCSO court?
So the question is, what is the role of a psychiatrist in a POCSO court?
Okay, before we go to that, someone who has written, even if the teacher has a psychiatric illness, it's not an excuse for the previous case. So that's the whole point. We have to be very careful and guarded that they are not going to come to us and we document depression, and that is used again, to protect her in a court of law, right? Aggravated sexual assault is a serious offense, so we should keep that well in mind when we're dealing with a person. All right, now come back to this case. So what do we do?
If
What is
summoned,
the
one
role
has
of
to
the
go
psychiatrist?
anyway.
Sorry?
If you're summoned, you have to go to the court anyway.
Yes, please. Absolutely.
For communication with child, we cannot decline a summons.
Yes.
Assistance in communicating with the child with intellectual disability.
So do we go to POCSO courts only when for this sort of thing that we are aiding the child, or is there anything else?
We have to go, but it's not our job to see cross-examination if it's fair or not.
No, it's not our job to see if it's fair or not. It's our job to see if the child is comfortable or not, or understands the questions. Because This child has severe intellectual disability. Do you think a child of severe intellectual disability can be cross-questioned? Usually you would just see the response they have when the accused is brought in front of them. And we have seen children with moderate to severe intellectual disability in POCSO court flinch when the accused is brought at a distance, but for identification or the picture is shown to them. Right? So it's our job to see that the person is comfortable. Is there anything else that, any other scenario where a psychiatrist may be called to a POCSO court? What if you have examined a case? Can you not be called as an expert witness? Right? So we could be called to POCSO courts under two conditions. One is that we are an expert witness where we have seen the case. So you bring your documents. Usually what happens is that when the police are assessing the case, they will take your original documents or medical records from you. So please be very sure to Xerox and keep a copy of that and write all that you want to in a separate file. If you have many of them, put them under medical legal folder so that you can get it. It has also happened that sometimes you are not able to retrieve medical records, particularly in bigger institutes and government setups. So you can always ask them when they give you the summons that, can you please give me the documentation, because this is maybe 4 years old or 5 years old or so on and so forth. You can read your own documents in your own handwriting, or even if it is assistant's handwriting. That's why in POCSO, repeatedly I'm saying that kindly sign on the documentation that you have yourself. That's very important in the court of law. Otherwise, your statement becomes invalid if you have not signed that I have ratified or verified this particular examination. The comments on the general examination and injuries can be avoided. They can just be noted that it was done by so and so. If we are an expert aid, like in this case, first thing first is build a rapport with the child. The court gives you the allowance. Usually they call it the pre-trial aid or the pre-trial rapport building, where they'll give you time to come and talk to the child and try and understand from the child what is going on. Usually there would be someone from the court, the prosecutor involved, or an NGO who is involved. And then there are times when the prosecution is extremely, the cross-examination is extremely aggressive, and they will shoot down upon the child that you are the one who wanted to be with the victim. Mention it clearly. And that's when you can intervene, and you have every right to say that this child is not going to understand the difference between the two, or you need to tone down, you need to speak to her in a different way, or you can ask the question in a different way. Of course, the lawyers do get irritated, but stick to your ground. Doesn't matter. Our interests are to safeguard the child. And you are expected to submit a report of what has happened. So please document. On 17th of December, I met the child for the first time. Rapport was established. This is what we discussed. On 19th, I was summoned to court. This is what happened in the court. This is where I intervened. On 21st, this is what happened. This is what I have done. And submit that report, one report to the court and one with yourself. So in case it ever comes up again, you have that documentation very clear. Right?
Yeah. There is a query from Dr. Ashwin. What about malingering, false memories, extortion, vengeance, etc.? Are there any checks and balances, since this is a very serious provision?
Right. So that's what we have discussed in a few of the cases. As far as extortion, we discussed it in the format of the parents asking for compensation. There have been cases where there has been, what should we say, a caste war, where one parent had accused the other. They lodged against POCSO, and we realized over a period of time that this has got nothing to do with child sexual abuse, but it is just a vendetta against them.
Okay.
So repeatedly seeing the child and examination, and if you feel the need, indoor observation does give us these clues. And the police, again, I'm coming back that there's a sea change, because earlier when we had to report child sexual abuse, even we would be very like, oh my God, no, we can't let our children go through this. But things have changed now a lot. And in fact, they come and tell us that, madam, this is looking like a very fishy case, which is going on. So you please think about it. This is the information that we have got. We have come to know that there were 3 brothers and they had a fight for property. And then this suddenly came up, so on and so forth. So in tandem with the police and the forensics, because the forensics view everyone as a criminal. So their attitude is very different from our attitude. They have exact opposite. They are looking as though why is the child complaining, or why are the parents complaining? So when you get that balance, all of these issues do come out.
Yeah, I think when people will always try to misuse any good thing, but then it is not our job to decide. It is I think judiciary will decide on that. We just honestly put up the facts and let the judiciary do their work.
Those facts may come. See, what we have to understand as mental health professionals and psychiatrists particularly, we have the longest stint with the patient and we have a very good rapport with them. You would realize, many of you who are affiliated to medical colleges, that the patients, even if they're in the medical and surgical wards, finally they'll say, I want to come and stay in your ward because I'm happier over there. Why? Because they have a therapeutic alliance with us which lasts for a longer period of time. Right? So they may confide in us about these things. So it's important for us to document and bring it forward to the police and the judiciary. Right? Okay. Shall we go ahead?
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this looks, I think that this is the last case for the day. Thank you for being patient. Miss R was brought to our OPD registered under POCSO. She was 16 years old and was caught with her boyfriend who was 19 years old. They had eloped 1 week ago from Kolkata and had gone to Delhi. They claimed to have gotten married in a temple. They had regular intercourse during this period, unprotected. The girl's parents lodged a missing persons complaint and both were picked up from Delhi. The boy is now behind bars. The girl is extremely clear that she will be with him and him only. She said it was completely consensual and there was no coercion. So he's registered under POCSO. He's gone behind bars. And she's saying that wo mera pati hai. How do we deal with something like this? What is...
Her consent is not valid here. The female is a minor. Then
so
wait until she becomes 18. Still, it is a crime. Parents will decide. He cannot give consent.
So you still have places in India where there are girls who are married at the age of 16 and 17, and actually the husbands go to jail because it comes under POCSO. It has happened. But what are your opinions about this? Do you think that this is something which is right? Is consensual sex okay? She's 16 years old. What do you think? She's an adolescent. Does that click something in the mind? What is normal adolescent sexual behavior expected at that age?
So the comments are: marriage is also invalid. Minority age can be decreased to 15 now. Doesn't the age difference between the victim and perpetrator matter? Consensual is okay. It is according to law rape. I think it should be okay. The marriage is valid. Sex is not valid. Actually, it is wrongfully.
Marriage is also not valid, no? 18 and 21. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Actually, it is wrong lawfully, but yeah, Amrit, go on.
So Alim forgot to read Sazia's message. Yes, it should be registered in POCSO. And stage of experimentation, sexual behavior may be normal. It should not come under POCSO. She cannot give valid consent. Actually, it is wrong lawfully, but adolescent have higher drive. So we have
So you
Lot of
see,
marriage is not legal. Yeah. Yes,
in
madam.
the ambit of protection, this is one thing which the Act, however child friendly and child centric it has not taken into account that there will be adolescents with a normal sexual drive who would want to have consensual sex because ethically, socially, morally, our society believes that still believes to a large extent that sex is validated after marriage. Sex is definitely wrong if it is before the age of 18, unless you're married. And it is definitely wrong at all other times, unless you're married, which goes absolutely against normal sexual development and cultural development, which is happening nowadays. Right? The exposure that children have is very different, and adolescence is very different than what was there even 10 years ago. So this is actually something which is, if I may say, a questionable thing in POCSO, that whether it should be the age of mandatory reporting or the age for POCSO should be reduced to 16 and not be 18. How many of you are in favor? Can we take a poll quickly? How many think it should
Yes.
be 16?
What is the question? Please repeat the
How many
question
think
again.
that the age of
16 or
anybody who is 18 years and younger, POCSO mandates that it is sexual abuse if you have been abused. What I'm trying to ask you is, how many of you think that age of POCSO should be reduced to 16 years of age? That means anybody below 16 years, if abused, yes, this should be considered as child sexual abuse, but after 16 years, it should not be considered as CSA. Should it be 16 or should it be 18? The age of reporting, the upper limit.
a lot of responses.
16 or
16,
18?
18, 15, 18, 15, 16, 16, 18, 16, 18, 15, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, it should be 18, 16. So majority is 16, madam.
Not
Few
really.
18 and some
Eating up
and
some of the
some people have written and some people want it to be 15.
15. Okay. So we have a little bit more in favor of 12. Someone has written 12. I wouldn't think that the child has has the understanding of the sexual act per se. So between 16 and 18, there is a movement which is going on. There has been a petition that has been filed to change and bring down the age to 16, or at least have a special provision to consider that consensual sex should not be allowed under the act. The reason that 18 was introduced is because there are many parts of India where first of all the girls are married off at a younger age, and then there's a lot of sexual violence, and they thought that POCSO would help prevent that sexual violence. But I do not think that this is the right way to do it. There's also a lot of stigma which gets inadvertently attached to that 16 to 18 consensual sex in ours, which is a society issue. But we really need to work around that to see that the judicial process, which is already so overburdened, is not overburdened, and neither the medical fraternity nor the police, with cases which are going to be dismissed any which ways. Right? So the understanding of the sexual act, the consent, the voluntariness are important to assess, and maybe IPS can take a stand on this and try and see what happens if this can be changed to 16. Right? So this is just food for thought. There are lots of ramifications which come about this. There are people who have teenage pregnancies even at 15, 17, so on and so forth. So there are lots of things which come about, which has its pros and cons, but I think we need to reconsider it from a sexual development point of view. Right? All right. So Now let's have a quick recap. Does anyone remember what the first case was? What is it that we said the first case taught us, or what did we remember?
Report to SJ team.
Reporter should be reported.
First case that we saw was
Should be reported.
reporting is mandatory. What about the second one? What was the second case? Anybody? Remember the police officer who was
Yeah, in the police station.
yes, and
Who
then
made them
the
wait
child away and the mother away and
that
so
year
on.
24 hours.
So it has to be conducive. Yes, because he thought it was within 24 hours. What about the third case? Yes, prior. What about the third case? In the third case, we learned that male sexual assault is also
Male.
mandatory to report, right? Then how to evaluate a case of pregnancy, how to go about with reporting a second opinion of an already pre-registered POCSO case. Be very careful of false reporting, compensation, malingering, so on and so forth. So many things that we have come across in the cases. We have not discussed about child pornography, but that's another thing which usually the cybercrime cell and the police take that under their wing and they deal with it. Assessment of the accused, kindly do not do it in the same institute, and document physical should be sent somewhere else. Even if the perpetrator comes to medical services, please report. It is important and mandatory. The psychiatrist could be either an expert witness or an expert aid in a POCSO court where we are called to help the child. And the final case was the googly case, which I have not put up because it's not under the ambit, but whether consensual sex should be considered. It's not there in POCSO. So the BEAR Act covers these chapters 9, and the chapter 2 has detailed descriptions of sexual offenses against children, penetrative sexual assault, aggravated penetrative sexual assault, and the punishments, therefore, sexual assault for either or of them, sexual harassment, pornography, abetment of an attempt to commit. Sometimes you have these gangs or these friends who snare the girl and take to a particular place, even though it was consensual. I mean, it was a consensual relationship, but not consensual sex. Abetment of an attempt to commit an offense, reporting, recording statements, the special courts, the powers of the special courts, and miscellaneous, which includes NGOs, which includes media reporting, and so on and so forth. Right? So if you look at the POCSO Act from a bird's eye view, we have what is created: special juvenile police units, special courts, district child protection units, and the child welfare unit. You have NGOs, laypersons, which includes all the school authorities, college authorities, so on and so forth, and the medical services. Any one of these involved, it becomes mandatory to report, right? And again, I'm repeating this number for many of our colleagues who had called in repeatedly saying that they don't want to break the therapeutic alliance and have anonymously reported, and that seems to have worked in certain cases. And Childline helps very much in these cases, so you can always tap on their telephone lines to see how they go about and involve you if necessary. So POCSO is one of the few very clear and simple acts, which is why I'm here, because otherwise I'm not a legal person per se. So, but because it's related to children and we've encountered so much of it. So rather than worry or get scared about it or be phobic about the act, if we just adhere to it and understand it, we will actually be providing justice to many children who are otherwise unprotected. Thank you very much. And I have to thank my team at Nair Hospital, with whom, particularly the forensic department, with whom we have worked very closely in all these cases. I request those of you who have taken screenshots not to repeat the cases, because some of them are from our archives, but like I told Dr. Tofan Patti, Alim and Amrit, without sharing these cases, I don't think you would get the essence of the act. So I I hope you please stick to that. For your understanding, it's fine, but please do not repeat the cases wherever you talk about it. Yes, and now I don't know what.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think yeah,
Thank you,
audience
ma'am.
will take care of it. So Amit, should we now invite questions? Any questions in general that we have?
There have been some few questions, Alim. Like
Yeah.
about McNaughton's rule. If the accused is psychotic or no, is having suffering from schizophrenia, how do we go about it? Does McNaughton's rule, apply?
McNaughton's.
There are questions. McNaughton's rule, does it apply if the patient is psychotic? So let us take few questions.
If you're talking about the victim or you're talking about the accused?
Accused.
Accused. So that's going to be tried by the judiciary. Okay, whether they understood how much is the act at the time of doing it is very important. But from what we have seen, unless the person has extreme severe untreated psychosis, that becomes a totally different issue. Usually, this has not come out as a deterrent to being punished under the POCSO Act, not very often. So the judiciary will take cognizance of that fact.
Yeah, ma'am, there are so many thank yous that all the questions are lost in the flood of thank you.
Thanks.
So we thank ma'am from all of your side, all the audience. Please post your questions if there are any, because there are so many thank yous that the questions are lost somewhere in the chat.
Alim, we have two respected chairpersons. Can we just ask them for what anything they want to add or?
Sure. Chairperson, sir, please.
Madam, can we share the screen sharing mode, please, if possible?
Yeah, sorry, yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alka, for an excellent and very stimulating presentation. The very fact that there was a flood of answers coming for each and every question of yours is something fantastic. But at the same time, you said in the end, it's a very simple law. I don't think it is that simple. It is probably one of the most complicated laws, because how you view it, either you view it as a clinician or you view it as a sufferer, or you are viewing it as accused. And finally, of course, it is the judiciary which decides what is right and what is wrong. Okay.
What I meant to say
we can interpret in our own ways, because we are definitely biased. As a medical professional, we will be biased more to the sufferer.
No, what I meant to say was,
judiciary doesn't have the emotion.
Sorry.
Is that they will go by the word. So naturally, their interpretations may not really go according to our interpretations. That's what I feel. But anyway, you have done an excellent job. Thank you very much. I'm very lucky to be in this session, especially as a chairperson, because I've got a chance to communicate with you directly. But it is, a few things that are very clear. That is, one is it's gender neutral. Number two, about the basic skeleton of the law, what exactly it aims at, and what we are supposed to do as a mental health professional. You have brought it very beautifully. Thank you very much for that. But as I said, if you're working in a government setup where there is a lot of support staff, things become very easy for you. You become more and more exposed to many cases. You become more experienced. You know what decision has to be taken at which appropriate time. But for a single practitioner, things are going to be really tough. They require a lot of helpline from people like you, or maybe Nimhans, John is there. And with these few comments, I will hand it over to Dr. Agarwal sir for his comments, and then probably we can have further discussion on this. Thank you.
May I just say one thing? What I meant to say was that this act vis-a-vis the IPC earlier and other laws of the land have defined things much more clearly for us. There will always be gray areas and open to interpretation because judiciary does their own job. But the gap between our understanding of the law and actual implementation in this particular act is much less. It's much less because the definitions are so clear. Everything is defined. Everything has been well thought of,
No,
which is why
law will always be very clear. The problem
no,
is how to
no,
really
it was
put it
not.
into
I
action.
think we have so many gray areas as far as child sexual abuse was concerned. Here, every small thing has been very openly declared, and therefore it becomes easy for them and for us to whether to consider it or not to consider it. You know, so that's why I said that I think comparatively it's a much like with I.
Probably with your experience, it has looked very simple for you. For me, it is not like that.
Yeah, hopefully, well, hopefully after this today, it would be a little more simple for you also after this.
Maybe we have to work out with this more and more. Maybe another decade, you will
No,
be able to tell for sure that how it can really work, especially in remote places. We are talking about a metro.
no. In
State
remote,
to state, there will be a lot of difference.
100%, 100%. We need to have implementation at a grassroots level also, but the effort is being made, which is what we really appreciate, which was not there earlier.
Right. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
I think it was a very good presentation, and the POCSO was made to appear much simpler by Dr. Alka by beautifully bringing out the cases related to different categories and controversies like uh, adolescents consensual sexuality has also been brought out. So all these things have been brought out very beautifully by Dr. Alka. So I thank her for her wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much.
We have an interesting question, madam.
Right.
So Sebin has put in a question, madam. It's interesting to because it's a little different. Recently, a mental health professional in Kerala was booked under POCSO. He was chairman of the CWC, and he asked that as part of his duty, he had to ask about details about sexual abuse of the girl. But the girl complained that it was abuse. Will this same thing apply to us also?
I would ask this question back to Sebin. In what position was the mental health professional or the chairman? In what position was he?
He was chairman of CWC.
He is the chairman of the Child Welfare Committee, and he has a complaint against him that there is sexual abuse. So Sebin says, what do we do?
Ma'am, you asked the question back to me. Hello?
Yes. So in what position is this person? He's the chairperson of the CWC, and he's a mental health professional who's encountering this child. So what does that make him? Is he a caregiver?
You're asking me, is it an abuse or not?
Yes.
No. If the chairman is able to defend it, that he had done it in the proper way, that he interviewed the child along with his other colleagues who were there.
Will you register it under POCSO? Will you register or not? That is the first question.
Oh, so if the case comes before me, if the child comes before me and the child tells me that the chairman of the Child Welfare Committee talked to her inappropriately, of course I will register as POCSO.
You answered. And what kind of a complaint does it become? Is it a regular sexual assault, or is there some special category it falls under?
I'm not, I don't know.
For the CWC, what role
it
does
will be
that
an aggrieved thing, no? Aggravated, yeah.
Yes, because you're expected to protect the child, which is when we were discussing that case that the child will go to the foster home. That was one of the unfortunate things that I said, that there's a lot of rampant sexual abuse even in these homes, you see. And then it becomes very important for us as mental health professionals to keep a tab because they are trusting us. So you will certainly report it. And this person is going to undergo tremendous judicial inquisition because you have been in a custodial position for not only one child. If you're the chairman of the CWC, you are expected to protect thousands of children.
So my question was not that, ma'am. My question was that, we see children coming to our OPD with history of sexual abuse. Now, after consultation, as part of our consultation, we have to ask what happened. And suppose after consultation, child goes out of the consultation room and reports to the media or somewhere, puts a social media chat or something that she was abused by the psychiatrist.
Okay.
Okay. So there is a professional risk, I would say, that especially for male colleagues, in seeing a child or we have to interview the child. I think we should keep the parents along with the child, or we should have a female colleague along with us when we are talking to the like that. That was my point.
100%. The presence of a female or the mother or a caregiver whom the child is comfortable with is very important while we are documenting. The very fact, see, most of the time when you would be evaluating this child, I wouldn't say most of the time, very often, the child may be referred to you by the police. It does happen. Okay, if there are no medical colleges or government institutes, maybe they'll bring to you for evaluation. That changes the case completely because you've got a reference, right? If the child walks into you, they are coming with their own consent, which you're documenting. So that's what the fear that I may be one of the accused and therefore I should not do what I should do. I would not go with that. Okay. I have a lot of male colleagues who are on our team and they do their evaluation. Yes, they always have a female with them, but that goes for any female child that you're evaluating, even if it is non-sexual abuse. For sexual abuse, most certainly you have somebody. Yes?
Okay.
Ma'am, there is a question in repeated ways. Suppose a person comes to us right now and reports that the abuse was 2 years back or 5 years back or 10 years back when the person was a child. So how do we go about in this situation?
So they want to, first of all, register a complaint. See, what is important is, first of all, the act has come in 2012. So technically speaking, anything before that is a gray area. All right.
Okay.
There are people who say it's not valid because it's before 2012. However, if you speak to the police and judiciary, they say if the child is still traumatized by it, you can report it and then we will see how to go about it from the legal point of view. The issue here is, am I telling you about the sexual abuse history because I am traumatized by it, and was it years ago before 2012? If it is after 2012, it's mandatory for me to report if the person is still a minor. If the person is not a minor, then I ask the person themselves and I document that they are not interested in reporting this. This is coming to me as a mental health professional, and that's why they brought it up. However, if it is, supposing the child has come today, is a 12-year-old child and says, 2 years ago, I was abused. Do I report or not? What do you think? I have to report, no? I have to report in order to protect. Yes. So that's where there are lots of permutations and combinations which can come about that.
Sure. And ma'am, regarding the Googly case, regarding the teacher who was depressed, how can we take care of her? We may be pushing her to commit suicide. So you take on that case.
Yeah, so that's the whole point, that we have to go in tandem with the police. We cannot not report, but we have to tell them that we are admitting this person for depression with suicidality for a period of observation in order to protect her interest and so that you can do your judicial process. She may not agree. Okay, she may not agree. But most of the time in these cases, the other side is the truth, that they have come to us, to mental health services, because they want a certificate to say that they're depressed and therefore they did the act. Your McNaughton's rule, which you were asking me in a little more milder form, that I am using this as an excuse to say that I have a problem and therefore my judgment was impaired, right? So, however, if you do find as a clinician that there is severe depression, severe suicidality, and she is this thing, and we really need to protect her, kindly work in tandem with your local police station and say that I'm going to admit this patient under my care However, such has happened. And that will give you space and time to work on that and protect her too.
Alim,
Thank you. Yeah.
I think we should hand over to Dr. Tufan sir for his concluding remarks. Tufan sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Alka Subramaniam, for a brilliant presentation. And it has, you have made the complex act and its implications quite simple. Still I shall go with Dr. Sudhakar, that the simplicity is understood academically, but when it is to be practically felt in the field, where there is not backup of big institutes and where the place is small, and the places where when you go to the proper authority, maybe they are deficient, then it is a major problem, which continues to be shown. And let us not be pessimistic. Let us look for a better future. But your presentation is very good. Two questions I would like to raise, very simple questions. If the perpetrator of the crime is a family member, suppose incest.
Yes.
Second question, we lodge a case, we report under POCSO. The child is then coaxed to tell the reverse thing after 2 to 3 months. And I am going to be proven that I have given the wrong information. These possibilities also are there, and it has happened.
Yes.
We can't take.
Which is why when it is a family member and there's incest, it is very important to isolate the child from the perpetrator, and the CWC takes over the child. The state takes over the child and does not allow the child to go back into that environment unless they are assured that the mother is going to stay separately with the child, or the child is protected in another family member's environment. We have had cases where there was one 9-year-old who was abused by her brother, who is currently still behind bars. It's been 2 years. And much older. There was a huge difference between the two. And they were cousins. The aunt did not give any statement to the police till the end. However, the child had reported this in the school. And the special juvenile police unit conducts sessions in school where they actually inform the teachers, inform caregivers about all this thing, and they fish out where are there cases where there might be sexual abuse, particularly in the lower strata of society. So this child stuck to her statement, and despite the fact that the mother defaulted and never gave because she wanted to protect that nephew of hers, yet he was 19 years old, I think. He was still behind bars, and the CWC completely took over. They kept her in a home for 6 months away from the mother, despite the fact that the mother kept saying, mother changed her house, mother changed everything, proved to them that I am not going to stay, I'm not going to meet these people, so on and so forth. But they did not give the child back to the mother for a whole academic year. And finally, we had to evaluate and say, yes, this child and this mother is there. The mother is capable now, and the child also is wanting to go home. So there was a period of observation. And the CWC officials, as well as the school authorities who took great interest in that case, would visit the child every 3 days and would have a telephonic conversation with her every day. So, like you said, that maybe this is a metro and they're doing it, but I think even for a metro, this is tremendous progress. This we have never seen earlier. So even if you scale that down to 1/20th in other places, some change is occurring.
Simultaneously, can we not perceive that the transfer of the child, a small child, to CWC, from whatever the environment his family was, she may perceive it as a trauma?
Very difficult, yes. So we had to do a lot of counseling with the child and a lot of preparedness, a lot of help that the authorities at the juvenile state home, the school authorities, familiar people. She had a twin. The twin brother would visit her very often. The other siblings were brought. The mother would visit her very often. So a lot of work, casework, which was done on that single child. And the reason we could do this is only because the school authorities took personal interest. It's not possible to do this intensive therapy and help for these children because we don't have those kind of resources. However, this is one case which distinctly sticks out in the mind because this happened, and it just takes that one person in that child's universe who takes the motivation and takes the lead, and it makes so much of a difference. And the awareness of this act and the fact that this act is something that we can work around to utilize this to the advantage of the child is something which we all have to learn about.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Over
you.
to and I also thank
Thank you.
for the valuable inputs by Dr. T.P. Sudhakar and Dr. Vivek Agrawal. We had a fantastic session, brilliant lecture, valuable inputs. Over to Amrit.
Yeah, Madam, I just one last query before I'll give a formal thank you from all of us here. So if the act had occurred before 2012, then can it be reported and legal authorities take into consideration? Like
No,
it
so
will
is
not
it
come under
mandatory?
POCSO, but then is it mandatory? No.
No.
My take on this will be that POCSO may not be applicable, but a crime had been
Yeah.
committed and the police has to take care of that.
No, is it mandatory to report?
Yes.
No.
Mandatory to
POCSO was not there, it may not be booked under POCSO, but something else was there. At no point of time such activity was allowed by the law.
what the way we look at it is, if the person is still a minor and has complained even today, even if the act took place before 2012, the person has complained today, it is better to mandatorily report. It is necessary to mandatorily report, not better. I take that back, because the child is yet a minor, still comes under the ambit of the act as of today. You have come to know as of today whether or not it's applicable from a legal perspective before 2012, not for you and me to decide. Today,
Exactly.
the child has told me that I have faced sexual abuse in 2010. Today, the child is 15 years of age. In my mind, 15-year-old reporting sexual abuse, troubled by sexual abuse to me, I will report.
If the child is adult today, but was if the person is adult today and was abused as a child before 2012, the question is modified. The
If
person is adult now.
Today.
In 2012, he or she was a child, and then she was abused in 2011, suppose.
So it's not going to be under POCSO, right? If it's above 18 years of age. First of all, it comes to that. If I am 19 years old and I'm reporting a sexual assault history, all right, which is, say, in 2010, when I was 10 years old, at present, I'm reporting the history. It does not come under POCSO from any angle, because the act came after 2012 and now I am above 18. The gray areas come when I am below 18 and the act is after, when the victim is after 2012. Those are the two things which I'm debating upon. So I have to always ask myself, is the person a minor, and when was the crime committed? So if it is a person who is not a minor and the act is before 2012, then it does not come under the ambit of POCSO. If the person still wants to report it, they can report it under IPC. However, we are not sure how much, to what extent that is going to go forward in terms of the jurisdiction. It will be more of a mental health issue where the trauma is causing problems right now. It is not mandatory for us to report, is what I'm trying to reiterate.
Yeah, ma'am, Gautam sir is also here. So, Gautam sir, would you like to comment?
Nothing I want to say, because it was an excellent session done by Alka, as usual. I'm always one of the big fan of her.
Thank you.
Academic session is really exemplary, and it is really very good. And what step by step he is coming to his conclusion and describe the POSCO is absolutely fantastic today. And I must thank to the other chairperson, Dr. Vivek, and my friend, Dr. T.P. Sudhakar. They are here also. Nice to see both of them. And at last but not the least, Dr. Tufan Poti, who is the main key person of this program, along with my two youngest brothers, Dr. Alim and Dr. Amrit. Both are equally energetic, and I am really proud of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So, ma'am, the
give a
take home
formal
point
thank-
is,
Oh,
but the take home point is every CSA has to be reported. It need not be done immediately, maybe delayed. You can report it anonymously also.
That's a secret armament. We are not supposed to discuss this openly.
Okay.
Because
It
the
has to be
law doesn't-
reported. Sure, it has to be reported, and you can report it anonymously also. And every person, even if you are a bus conductor, you have to do it. Amrit, over to you.
Thank you, Alim, for always trying to be the center of attraction. However hard we try to divert it from you. So let me first thank Dr. Alka Subramanian, madam. She was reluctant. I forced her to do this. She was in between a house shifting. So thank you, madam, for bringing your expertise. And I would also like to congratulate you for the bringing psychiatrist for the certification for SLD. So a big clap for all the entire team from all of us.
Support from everybody in the IPS. Thank you.
Yeah. So you were wonderful today. It was a case-based approach. We discussed everything. It was very, very interesting. And we would like to thank you for that.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Sudhakar, sir. It's a wonderful background you have got, looking so young and dashing and handsome. Thank you for bringing your presence. It was very, very energetic. All the way from Tirupati. Sir, namaskar to you. Dr. Agarwal, sir. So thank you so much. You're an expert in child and adolescent psychiatry, and we look up to you for further guidance, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Tufan, sir, for helping us do what we are doing. IPS OSB for supporting us, never interfering. Torrent, Pavan, all are, we have a dedicated set of followers with more than 350 or 370 logins today, peak of 256, and we have more than 500 registrations. When there is a, tsunami of webinars, so in that, getting such a good audience, it speaks a lot about the quality of our speakers and the quality of the people who participate. I think that they look in for new things. They have kept us going. They've kept us motivated, and they've egged us to do better and better each time. So thank you all of you for encouraging us. Thank you, Alim. Again, I don't want to repeat. You are as boring as you always are. You're always trying to barge in, asking too many questions, stopping the flow of the talk. In spite of all that, you are good enough. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Ma'am, really excellent. बहुत बढ़िया.
Lots of thank you.
Hello.
Lots of thank you.
Very stimulating.